So Blender is one of the popular tools for creating CGI VR video, and one of, if not the biggest challenge, is how long it takes to render something in cycles. So it can take hours, days for a few seconds of high res, even at just 30 frames per second. So when Blender 2.8 beta came out, well, actually alpha, I got excited, a lot of people got excited with the possibility of doing real-time rendering of VR. Depending on how complicated the scene is and how sophisticated your machine is, even if it's not real-time perfectly, just being able to do 5 minutes of video in an hour instead of a week would be great. There's a problem, however. The equirectangular camera does not work for Eevee, which obviously sucks. But the folks at United Film Unlimited shared their technique for 360 images and video with Blender or anything, actually, using cube mapping by creating multiple cameras in a cube map format, which is smart because cube maps are the same information basically as any other 360 format, so then you just have to map it over. The problem, however, is that their technique that they showed only works for 2D. I'll be expanding on that to show you how you can do 3D with the same technique. It isn't perfect, but it should suffice until we have a fully functional camera for Eevee, which unfortunately they said would probably take a while. So until then, I'm going to show you how to do it, what some of the flaws are, some of my recommendations, and a little bit of how to edit it out, because editing for VR is a bit of a pain, so I'll show you at least the basics of how to put side by side together, and then compress it and change the size of things. So let's get started. So obviously the first thing we need is Blender. So blender.org. The default one is 2.79 beta. Well, sorry, 2.79b, which is production, but we want beta. So if we go to download, try 2.8 beta, we get the beta download page. So I already downloaded it, so I won't duplicate it, but we want 2.8 beta, whether it's 64-bit, 32-bit, Windows. Yeah, so you need to download that. Also, we're going to use the Mr. Elephant sample, which I've lost the link to. There. It is at the 2.8 beta page itself. So blender.org 2-8. Yeah, try it yourself. I think you can go ahead and find it. But if you go to try it yourself, there's some examples. I have a YouTube video that I did of changing tree creature. I'll link that in the description if I remember. But we want Mr. Elephant, this guy. So if you download that, which I did already, so I'm not going to do it again, we will modify that. I like it because it's just a static image, and if you want to do a video, it's the same technique, you just do more. I might even try and move the camera so we turn it into a little bit of a video if this doesn't get too long and I decide to noob my way through it, because I am the giant noob. You'll need, from the United Film Dome page, their Cubemap, their rectangular blend file. If you download their 360 rig setup using their password here, it will have two blend files underneath this zip. You want the cube to equi file. We'll be using that in a bit. For editing, I also recommend grabbing FFmpeg and DaVinci Resolve 15. We will probably use DaVinci Resolve. It's got some limitations for the free version, but it it'll do everything we need for this example, and in the description I'll show some notes on how to do it completely in command line with FFmpeg. But for this, we'll just use the GUI. Okay, back soon. Now that we have Blendfiles, I want you to go to File, Open Mr. Elephant, which obviously I already have. I copied it over to a file so I don't overwrite the original one, and I did the same for Cube to Equi. This is Mr. Elephant is where we're going to put the cameras, the Cubemap cameras, and then once we have renders from those, we'll take those Cubemap camera outputs and turn it into a singular equirectangular image. So I've already changed this from Eevee. So let's just turn Eevee back on. So turn volumetrics off, which is the way it was originally. And you can see why Eevee is so wonderful. Now imagine if, instead of rendering cycles, to turn this into a VR scene, you're done, right? In many ways, for lots of uses, even this basic level of quality from the viewport is plenty for putting something inside of a headset, because the resolution inside of a headset and the quality detail and everything you get is limited already anyway, right? So the shadows can be better and things like that. In those settings we can change. We'll get the quality up once we render it, but already just through the viewport you can see how wonderful it is. But on my slow computer, this is too slow to actually play with, so I'm taking it back to this, and then I'm just so there's something we can see, I'm opening up shading, and I'm going to click random. So now we can see that this is a bunch of different objects. We're going to turn overlays on if they're not already on, and now we see where the lights are, spotlights, all different kinds of lights. And if we back out, we see where this camera is. Let's take a look at this camera. We're going to copy this camera after we take the outliner view. Where is it? There. But first, let's find it and get it out from under here. So what I'm going to do is first get these in there because they're in my way. Now let's go find that camera. I know there's probably a way to search it out, but I don't know what it is yet. When I type camera, it doesn't do it. It's probably because it's called Hero. Yeah, that's why. Well, why did I just do that? It's gonna let you do that anyway. So, gonna create a new collection. Not there. We're gonna take Hero. Well, let me do this. Yes, it will. No, it won't. We're gonna take Hero and move it out of there. Now we're gonna move it in to here. Call these cameras, plural. And we're gonna call this camera, not Hero, but actually, yeah, let's leave that camera just the way it is. And let's copy it 6 times. We want to duplicate it, but no, we don't want to duplicate it. We want to just copy it once. So CV. Now we have another camera called Hero. Oh, we copied the entire collection. That's fine. It's fine. But we're going to call this guy front. And you notice he has different settings. But we want 6 cameras with the same settings because we don't want to go through and change them all the time. So instead of just copy and paste where we would get different settings each time, we want them to stay linked. So object duplicate linked is Alt-D. When we do that, it grabs the duplicate, so you can automatically grab it around the screen, but we're just going to hit escape to keep it where it is. And if you keep doing Alt-D, it'll keep grabbing it like that. But if you do edit, redo, no. I'm sorry, repeat last, Shift R. There we go. R. Notice it's not grabbing it, but it's creating more. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. We have 6. So let's call them front, back, left, right, up, down. We have 6 cameras. We'll just start with the one at the top. So these are all linked and called Hero 1. But instead of Hero 1, let's just call it Camera and see what happens. They all change. Good. They're all linked. So these need to be different. They need to be 90-degree cameras. So right now they're 3.9 millimeters. We want to change this to field of view. We want to change the field of view of all of them to 90. And notice that these new cameras, come here you, changed their shape. The old camera is like that, these new cameras are like that. Cool. Now front is right, not 90 degrees, but what we want is we want these new cameras to be at angles relative to each other. So I'm going to use something I haven't done. I'm going to try it with you guys here live. What I'm going to do is constrain all of these cameras to this and then give them offsets. So back camera, where's constraint? Object constraints, add object constraint, copy location, target being, can do that, yeah, hero. There. And we also want to copy rotation, add constraint, copy rotation, hero, offsets, and what if we do this? Perfect. Right? So now the offset is 0. So before this was the literal rotation, now it's the offset rotation. So we want front to be, I'm sorry, this is back. So we want back to be offset around towards the back. So we want to rotate this guy across the z-axis 180 degrees. And it didn't do, well, no, it did do. Z-axis is that way, so we don't want to rotate it that. We want to rotate it around one of these axes. We'll get the right one. There we go. It's the y-axis. Let's lock these so I don't accidentally change it by dragging things. I can still change it by typing in it, but I won't be able to change it by dragging it. Down. Add object constraint, copy location. Now that I know what I'm doing, I can do it a little bit faster. Add object constraint, copy rotation, hero, offset. We do this, it'll put it forward. We want it down, which is minus 90 on X. Let's give it a shot. Bingo. Cool. Let's lock these. Front. Object constraint. Copy location. Object constraint. Copy rotation. No offset. It's going to point in the exact same direction. But let's, yeah, no offset. So let's just make these zeros so they don't confuse me ever. Well, confuse me again. Left. Okay. Let's go ahead and make these zeros now, and it's going to make it go down. It'll, oh, that's sweet. Oh, right, because that's where the scene actually goes. Copy location, hero. Copy rotation, hero. It moved. Offset. What did we want to say? Left. This is going to be 90. Oh, nope, that rotates around that. Alright, was it Y? I think Y180 is 90. Great, Y90 took us left. Notice that front, left, back, and right are all going to be pointed up, and down is pointed forward. That's because of when the cube unfolds, the front of the left and the right are attached to front, and bottom is connected to front, but back is connected to either left or right. So it's going to fold sideways, not up or down. So all of these point the way we want. So now right. Make these zeros. Okay, add constraint, copy location, hero, add constraint, copy rotation, nope, hero, offset. The other one was 90, so this is going to be minus 90. Perfect. And now let's lock these. Now the only one left is up, and up is going to point backwards because when it folds up here, it's going to be now up. Otherwise, it would be upside down, if that makes any sense. So up's arrow needs to point towards the back of the cube. Copy location, hero, constraint, copy rotation, 0, offset, and nice and twisty, 0, 0, 0, and now that's forward, and we want it to be pointing back, so we can just loop this backwards, and I think that was not Z, X, 180, bingo. So now we have a cube. Let's save that. Save as. And we can hide this, right? So we don't need to see it anymore. We could use the camera for something, I don't know, but right now I'm just using it to control where it moves, where everything moves, and I don't need to see where everything is right now. So let's look through one of these cameras. Currently the scene's camera, scene, is hero. Let's change the scene's camera to front, and it's 90 degrees, so let's see what he sees. There. Now for comparison, let's see what hero saw before. Right, so you can see that we are seeing more of the scene, which is what you want. And if we do right, left, perfect, front. And right now, this is all you need. We could separately render these 6 images with manually going front, left, right, etc. You'd have a Cubemap, and you'd get a 360-degree view of this from this angle. But let's get a better angle, and let's find a better way to view things. So let's grab it, and on its local z-axis, yeah, on its local z-axis, which is z twice, we're pushing forwards. So we're getting close. And we have that. So now let's grab it on its local y-axis. Nope. Grab it on its local x-axis and move it over a bit. Notice I'm not bothering to rotate it. It's got a decent enough angle. You know how to rotate things. Grab it, and then on the local y-axis, let's move it down a bit. And so the 90 degrees determines what's going to be in the very front camera. Right, so the seams are going to be basically here, right? Now, we have the camera placed where we want. And if we render it, looks like it's up, there it goes. There we go, it rendered. Alright, remind me to edit out the part of the video where it was rendering and it looked like it almost crashed. If you heard me say that without seeing the rendering and it almost crashed, then I edited it out already. So that's the view from the front camera. As you can see, it's got a pretty wide view already. So we can afford to get even closer, because I think before Blender crashed, we actually weren't. I've got my render window popping up separately. We actually didn't move the camera, and that's correct. We didn't move the camera, so let's do that. But first, something I didn't forget that you didn't tell me. That wasn't stereo. That was mono. The whole point is to make it stereo. This is already what was done before. So, what's gonna make it stereo? It's gonna make it stereo is going to the scene. Not the scene. The output. Yeah, going to the output, clicking Stereoscopic. And then we're going to make all of these stereo cameras. Or we're not. We're not. I forgot. Doesn't change them all. Oh wait, yes it does. Yes it does. Yes it does. Change them all. Sorry. Even Hero. Changed them all. You just won't see it until... Now, it's a stereo camera. Let's look at the stereo camera settings, which are here. Right. And this window pulls out. Right now it's set for 3D, so if I look through the camera view, it's anaglyph. I definitely recommend, if you do this a lot, to buy a good pair of anaglyph glasses, because it's easier than rendering it out and realizing that you've done something that you really don't want to see in stereo. Like, for example, this plane. This plane is, if you think of this as a screen in a movie theater and the camera is the projector, this plane is the screen in the movie theater. So anything on this side of the plane is popped in. Anything on this side of the plane towards the viewer is popped out, like it's the in your face part. And anything on the screen is going to look like it was a normal movie and flat. So right now, let's also show the cameras. And let's hide all the other cameras except the front one. Let's not hide the front one. Cameras. You can see that there's a distance between the cameras, which is your IPD, your interpupillary distance. And that shows up in the stereoscopy settings for the camera as your interocular distance, or interocular distance. And the convergence plane is 0.195. And if we do this, divided by 30, it's the same number. So that's a pretty standard thing, is the screen is at IPD times 30, or the IPD is screen divided by 30. And 65 millimeters also happens to be a pretty standard IPD, I believe. Yeah, 65 millimeters, I think, or something. Basically, wherever you want this to be, that is likely a 30th of it. If, big if, you want it to look like reality. But that's a giant mouse, so reality be damned. We're gonna make this interpupillary distance whatever makes sense for the scene. So we're going to move the scene camera a bit. Let's grab this camera and change color when I hit grab, but let's do this again. Grab the camera on the, nope, not the y-axis, on the, whoops, grab. Not the local x, it's going to be local z. Grab z, local z axis. Now it points towards the mouse. Going to move that closer to the mouse. And let's also rotate it on the y-axis locally. Yep. About there. And let's see what that looks like in camera. And since few people probably aren't wearing your 3D glasses like you should be, let's look at just one camera, which is usually the left. Speaking of left, since we are creating a cube map, right, by default the left camera is where things are pointed and the right camera is just adding information. We want the actual pivot point to be at the center. Right, so when we render it out, think of it as where the tripod, instead of the camera, the left camera being on the tripod and there being a bar where the right camera's off, the middle of the tripod where we're rotating things is where we're rotating things. The left camera's a little bit to the left, and the right camera's a little bit to the right. So we've got the pivot point in the center. We just happen to be looking at the left camera because it's easier. And let's rotate G, R, what was it, Y? Y. Let's rotate that guy that way. We don't want to rotate down. In fact, let's get rid of one of these rotations. Which one is it? That one. And not that one. G, R, Y, Y. There we go. So basically, we want the camera to be square with the horizon. It was tilted. And G, C, Z, this moves it forward and back. So how much forward and back do we want? That's fine. Now, back to this camera view. Scroll out. You can see the mouse is behind the screen and there's nothing in front of the screen. So let's move the screen. Where is that? Now, oh, it really is supposed to be that. Oh, I'm on the wrong camera. I'm on the wrong camera. There. And I want to have most of the mouse part of the mouse sticking out of the screen. There are things I am not doing that you'll notice in a bit, like that cuts through that, and you'll see why. That's not a good thing when we get around to rendering out the scene and plugging it back together in stereo. But sure, let's see what this looks like after I save it. Alright, Let's turn stereo back on. And I know you won't be able to see it, but let's zoom in. Remember when I said things that hit the screen are flat? Notice you don't see any red or blue here. Nothing shifted. But if you look closely on the side of the couch, or back here, or like here, and wherever these lights are, that's the, I believe the term is dispersion, 3D dispersion. And you can tell by which color's on which side, red or blue, if it's behind the screen or in front of the screen. I think red on the left means it's, yep, behind the screen. So that's where the screen is. Let's see what that's going to look like. Shaded. Cool. And these lines are for the parallax. I believe that's the right term. It's been a while since I've done a lot of 3D work. But let's go ahead and see if I don't crash Blender by rendering this image. Remind me to edit out this part. And if we, up here, it's showing, you can, unless you look close, you can't really tell that this is an monolith. If you look at the lights, you can see back there, but since the plane is cutting through the mouse and it's really close to the mouse, the focal point is, most of it's on the screen. These books are pretty close to the camera. Those lights are pretty far back. Let me take a look with my glasses and see how this looks. Oh yeah, this looks awesome. You can't tell that, but it looks awesome in 3D. And there we go. We have a 3D picture in Eevee. That by itself would have been awesome back in the day when everyone was looking at 3D. Now, we could save this. This is front. So we could save this out, and why not? And just save this out. Render front. Front.jp. In fact, hey, why don't we do that? Why don't we save some time and get you to projection faster and render out 6 cubes. We're gonna pause and go back after rendering out 6 cubes. I'll be back.